Rhonda, here are your batches.
And then they were supposed to send the clips out today. I thought like this. They were screening clips. I was wondering if it was the kind of
See, I thought about sitting that. Pretty comfortable.
I was just going to try this with some.
So we're still having metal for this.
Email to her last night, I think, Renaissance, or Friday night, saying that the support grants should arrive. So then we should.
How's life?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Jay was, we had to work, Peter, to find a student council or a student rep.
Usually it's been the president.
Right. Who was
They
that?
did the pictures.
Smith or, Russell Smith's brother.
Davis.
Davis Smith. I think it might be him.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Stand for the pledge. Mr. Sampson, will you lead us off?
I would. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're going to get rolling. We have a big packet tonight, so we'll get through it as quickly as we can. I'll just remind you to turn your cell phones off. Is there anybody that's going to have public comment on a non-agenda item? Any board comments or observations? No public comment? Alright. We're going to go right into approval of July 9th regular board meeting minutes. Any questions, comments?
One clerical change on that is the signature page on page 3. We'll get that changed up for.
I don't know.
It says Caroline, but it'll be. So Caroline, you sign it.
Yeah, throwback.
Throwback.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, entertain a motion.
I move that we approve them with the recommended change. Second.
Any other questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. So we're going to move on to July 25th special board meeting minutes. Any questions, comments? Okay. First and second, any questions? No? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. I do not believe we have Wilson Scholarship and Education
Strike that.
Foundation. Okay, Superintendent's report, Ms. Ross.
Okay, a robust agenda in front of us. A lot going on, obviously. As I go through the my report, it'll be abbreviated through what we've gone through in the last 30 days, 40 days. You'll see quite a bit of information in front of you. The trustee handbook, actually that was an origination from new trustee orientation. So Tony and I met for probably an hour, maybe a little over an hour, and went through this handbook. But as we went through it, I noticed that a lot of this is information that we as a board didn't get. It's something I never had put together, and I don't think the district has either. So I wanted to make an extra copy so that you'll have it in front of you as well. There's really a lot of good reads in it. I need to change some things now that we've had new principals come on and people changing positions. It needs updated, but there's a lot of good information, and then that's the reason why you see it in front of you. I'm going to go through the recognition quickly. Polly or Mrs. Dupuy put on a professional development math at SKC Monday through Thursday. I believe, Tom, we had 8 of our teachers down there. Must have been probably 15 or 20, so over half of the participants were Polson educators, which is great to see. Mr. Sitter has worked well in the 7 years that I've been here at the high school, putting together a mentor program. We've always said supporting young teachers, keeping them in the profession. We've done a lot at the high school. He's stretched that now down into the rest of the district, and starting it in Cherry Valley, Linderman, and the middle school. And so I just want to recognize his leadership in that mentorship program. You'll see that I have in your folders a new teacher orientation day on the 24th, which is Friday. There's a call out for help. I need somebody to help me burn burgers. But I would like for somebody to come down and help me cook a hamburger, but really what that's for is a meet and greet. We're going to have over 11 or 12 new teachers to our district. I thought what a great time for you to come down informally, have a hamburger, meet them, visit a little bit, see what they're all about.
And that's here.
That's going to be in this room. Yeah. My hope is that we don't have the weather we had today, that it's the 75 to 85 summer that we're used to, and then we'll just be milling around. At that same time, we had a lot of work from, and kind of going out of order, but it goes in line with this. We'll have from 12 to about 12:30, we'll have new teachers here, and then we'll have the custodians in the IT department because they did a lot of work this summer. And so I want to feed them a lunch as well in appreciation of their efforts this year. So if you can stick around and hang out and thank them and see them as well. So that's going to be on the 24th. Again, going down here, Mr. Giles' maintenance department efforts to get the schools ready. In my facilities report, you'll hear about there's been some things that are even off the radar, such as the auditorium seating and bathrooms that have been replaced. And so there's quite a bit of stuff that's going on. But Mr. Giles and his crew, Mr. Elliott, Mr. Fancher, that's here with us in the IT department. We have new phones and IP voice over phones. Absolutely a dream. We're not quite sure how to use them all yet. There's supposed to be professional development in it, but I literally can take my phone, as I called Mr. Faintminer today, and I hit 503 or 305, and it goes right to the middle school instead of hitting 7, 883, 63, and then waiting for all the prompts and then going. So the communication line with this new phone system has been tremendous. Carl kicked it off about a year ago and did his due diligence in making sure we found the right ones. And from there, Adam's taken over as IT director and really just implemented really cool phones. And it's great for our communication. ABC's, academics, building good relationships, and C, communication. That communication goal is going to be enhanced with that new phone system. It's really a top-notch system. Quickly on the Folsom High School AP courses, we scored, so I'm going to give you some numbers. Of all of the advanced placement college board classes, last year's Folsom High School, 85% of the students that took the test scored a 3 or better. Right? That's compared to Montana average of 65. That's compared globally at 61. So you can put it in reference of 85 down to 61. So our AP programs are flourishing. In fact, up here, the 8th annual AP District Honor, that's the 2nd year in a row that we've received that. It's because we offer more AP classes and more kids that are taking it are passing it. So that's good news. And you'll see it a little bit later next month. The Folsom School District nurses applied for a $1,500 grant this summer. They received that grant and they put together a blanket informational resource for all teachers to see. It's to the point where it's so good that I'm going to ask every teacher to watch it. It's on concussions, asthma, what happens if they have a bee sting, how to use an EpiPen, just some things that they see in the classroom that we've not educated our teachers on. And so it's a really nice piece of work. So I want to shout out and give them kudos for their extra efforts. And you'll be able to see that soon. New business, school startup. As I mentioned, the 24th, if you could be here and help flip a burger, that'd be great. If not, if you don't want to cook, I'll handle it. Just come down and say hi if you get a chance. Again, it's from 12 to 1, but it's 12 to 1:30. That's on Friday. Then on Monday and Tuesday, it'll be a little different than what you're used to. I invite you to be at the high school Monday morning if you can be there. We start from 8:30 with a social. They'll have finger food, and that's sponsored by Glacier Bank. They pay for that food. And then at 8:30 promptly, we'll go from 8:30 to about 9:15. It'll be a real quick introduction to the board, go over the teacher and the classified employees of the year. And then I've got to save time. This is the first year in a while that we've had just 2 PIR days and not 3. And so I need to save time because we've asked a gentleman by Dr. Scott Holland, P-A-L-A-N-D, P-O-L-A-N-D, and he is a psychologist. I'm going to ask Tom to speak a little bit more. He's the one that turned this on it, but it's really on the mental, social, emotional health of students, suicide prevention piece. And so we're really careful about, like, wow, we wanted to kick off the year in a great note, positive, and now we're going to talk about suicide. Our kids suffer trauma. We know that, and I think it's the right message if we spin it the right way. It is positive, although it's real negative to think about what those consequences are, but the positive is to pay attention to the social, emotional needs of students. All right.
And we're also, just to piggyback on that, we're required to provide professional development for all staff in our district, 2 hours a year, every 5 years, I think, is the ARM that was passed. So we'll check that box as well. I was fortunate enough to hear Dr. Scott last summer in Bozeman. He's a leading expert in the nation on suicide prevention and awareness. He's going to be really good for us. Our school counselors also heard him last year because he was a keynote at the state counseling conference in Helena. We also secured him to do a presentation in the evening, August 27th, for parents, 6:30 to 8. So we're in the process of advertising that in the community and do a robocall, and we're doing a mail home flyer. For all of our students, we also extended it to the Ronan School District, Charlotte, Arley, and Mission.
And Hot Springs.
And Hot Springs. That's right, I sent to Mike Perry. So we all know we have a crisis in the valley with that over the last 3 or 4 years, so we want to do this for our students and community.
I think, if I heard right, you got standing ovation at the counselors conference.
Yeah.
People that have heard it before. We have several that went and speak highly of them. So we're excited to have him here. And so, consequently, I'm going to cut my time short because then we're going to roll right into his presentation. And then from there we go the run, lock, fight drills at all sites except for the high school, as we've already gone through that once there. Any new teachers at the high school will run down to the middle school. So it'll be introductions, stop caller until noon, and then run, lock, fight at the middle school on Monday. Tuesday morning, run, lock, fight training at Cherry Valley. Tuesday afternoon, run, lock, fight training at Linderman. So they're going to get that specific training within their buildings. As we go through that, the run, lock, fight is what it is. Run, get out of the building, lock down if you can't get out, lock yourself down, barricade, do whatever you got to do to hide, get yourself out of sight. And if that doesn't work and somebody's coming at you, fight to the end degree. But what we don't really do is give a lot of tools. Across the state, people are buying lots of bee spray, and maybe that was a solution. Some people, the legal liability don't like that because the premeditated part of you're not supposed to use bee spray on somebody, but I don't care if somebody's coming after kids. I don't think you're supposed to use a pencil either, but I hope they're not with a pencil. However, we've had somebody come by, this is called Reflex Protect. So it's a tool, and what we want to do, it's like a bear spray, it's a deterrent, it's a gel. We're working, this is a startup company, and quite frankly, they give you a lot. We're working on costs. But we are going to want to give our staff, not again, but I want something that's going to be able to implement it correctly, that if you can't get out of the building, you're locked down and something bad happens, then you need to squirt this in their eyes and provide the proper training for it. So it's a tool to help teachers feel more compatible at defending themselves if the situation ever should occur. Does that make sense? So it's a tool. I would, in fact, as we go through this, quite frankly, I never thought in a million years that I'd be the superintendent, tell people, arming teachers. That's just never where I thought my career would end. This is where it is that if you get out of the building, you take this and you get out of the building, and somebody comes around the corner and means harm, then you blast them, right? But that's where the training comes in, making sure that teachers know that it's not a student management tool. that it is truly.
Same thing for the board chair.
Yes, this one's not.
Notice I'm not sitting out there.
We're going to get this out of Chanel's hands here real quick. Or reach. But we are exploring, Carl and I are exploring, it may not be this company, but it's going to be something that's going to give teachers just one more, I guess, a piece or a tool that helps them feel safer in their classrooms and able to take care of kids. Because right now it's in just hide or fight, but we don't have a tool for that yet. It's coming out. So we're looking at what that might look like, and then implement a couple of trainings on Wednesday so that they know how to use that.
And obviously, this isn't something that they're just going to have willy-nilly in the top desk drawer that any 7-year-old can just grab and
That's the part that we're
have to ask.
It's not going to be mounted next to the fire extinguisher.
Right, exactly. Grab in case of bad guy.
Right, break glass.
Jen was being mean to me.
I'll move on quickly. First day I talked about is the 29th, Wednesday. Remember that is also an early release. We have put that in also on the master calendar. I want to let you know that that modular classroom is on site. Sam Giles and the crew, they did a great job of getting it in here, set up, pinched together, plumbed, or actually electricity's on. So Tom actually walked through it the other day. It's probably the nicest classroom in the district because it has AC and heat and LED lights, and it's fairly large. So again, you know why we did this, is to keep kids off the street. It's a safer place for kids rather than walking across the street. I talked about the run, lock, fight training with this reflex protect or some chemical tool. In your packets, there are 2 sheets on important back to school dates. One is the trainings, but 2 is the back to school nights. And so you'll see that in your green folder. I asked Tommy to put those in. It's the same information that you see that was in the newspaper. It looks like this, back to school nights. I just wanted you to have that, so if you wanted to plug that into your calendar, you can. And the last 4. In your green folders are the fall schedules. Just note, take particular note that where students go most of all their travel is in-state. I don't remember, I have to ask high school if there's any out-of-state travel. We used to give board approval for out-of-state travel, but I talked to legal on that. It's not necessary for activities, it's for curricular, and that has to do with crossing state lines and 504 health plans, because nursing regulations are different from state to state. That's the way that is. And usually you have a little car that would sound as you go across that state line. And then we are currently, Chanel, Tim, and I, and a trainer looking at before September 20th is to find a date that works for all of us for another admin trustee dinner, and then admin leaves in the work session for us. I felt that was very valuable last year, coming together and gaining some loyal, or just a trust with each other, knowing each other and who we are, what we stand for. So I want to do that again. Getting us together is difficult at best, especially this time of year, but it'll be similar to what we did 6:30 to 7:30 dinner, and then probably 7:30 to 9 training. Okay, so that's what's coming down. You'll see that coming from me soon. Lastly was you all signed up. I manually put in 2 trustees so that they were in it. Oh, everybody's on the Remind 101. To me, it's a real quick way to communicate, like, hey, cancellation of special board meeting tonight, or we're on a 2-hour delay, or whatever it might be. But it's a quick way for me to hit your cell phones, which I think most of us carry predominantly, rather than checking emails. If there's any issues with those, you can change your setting to your email if you'd rather go there. I just don't think it's as instantaneous as a text. And then I can also see on there, just so you know, that who sees it, who doesn't. So I know that 5 people saw that today, so I sent out an email behind it, so I know that everybody got a duplicate on it. Good, just for quick communications. And I'm doing it for leadership, doing it across the district, and I want to do it for all parents as a quick one as well. Okay, I did it. That's all I have for you.
Thank you. Do you have any questions for Rachel?
Real quick, just curious, you said PIR is now just 2 days instead of 3. And you got it packed up with suicide prevention, which I understand is very timely and very needed in this district, and then the Run Walk Fight, which again is obviously really needed. That's a lot of really heavy for right before school starts. What do you have in that time that is also positive and gets teachers ready to get those kids, you know?
Not much. We don't. I mean, honestly,
I don't worry about our teachers like getting, you know, walking into that first day and not like, oh dear God, okay, you know.
Yeah, our concern has always been lack of the opportunities for days to train, and one of the highest needs, and you know, we had the volunteer Run Walk Fight drill training this spring. We did on a Saturday. I took a little heat because the teachers wanted that opportunity to be either paid for or what it might be, and we really don't have the time to train.
So it just is what it is.
It is, but you know, I'm going to do my best at the beginning of this when I introduce and welcome everybody back. Is that this can be it can be at a real negative tone, but I think it's how we spin it, how we talk about it, and how important it is for kids, and I hope that people perceive it as that we're paying attention to what people need. And you're right, we've talked about that, and we've talked to Scott Pollard and said, man, you're coming in and you're supposed to jazz people up. I remember the days that we had the guy that someone would reach behind and they'd mimic out and have a lot of fun and everybody's laughing, right? That was the guest speaker. And but it didn't do a lot for the long haul needs of our district. Yeah, it is heavy.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it. Andrea? Okay. Facilities project update.
Yeah, let's start from the top, work our way down. At the high school, there's a lot of, the high school looks very good. Paint, fresh wax on the floors, but as we talked about, we contracted to have, go back up, the levy that was passed was initially spun on HVAC, new roof, but also we remodeled that front entryway to be more kid inviting, and then also the auditorium seats. It's always been one of the concerns in the auditorium. 750 seats thrown in, far less than that. Mission Valley, usually they like having concerts in there, but the two things has always been three things. The curtain didn't work very well, we changed that out. The sound system was horrible, we put new sound system in it. The seats were just 1970s, the yellows and the oranges. We worked with Steve's brother, with Gary and Becky Dupuy. They advised us of a company that was very reputable, and we ended up going with them. They were a little bit more expensive, but the service was more. They took the seats and actually disposed of them rather than we doing it ourselves. So the seat backs and the cushion themselves, packaged, ready to roll, to be here. We stripped the auditorium to bare concrete, cleaned it, and then the political winds, and I won't go into a lot of the political side, but the political side of things and the tariffs in China shut down the foundries. And so we lost valuable time. I also understand that a lot of the steel that's going into high rises are 2 to 4 months backlog because of the tariffs in China. Wow. Consequences is that we didn't have the metal standards that were going to get bolted to the concrete that the seats were going to be mounted on. They should have been done by this first PIR day. And we ended up, they couldn't get a hold of the guy, they went AWOL. We looked at a different vendor that was going to push us out into mid-November, and there was some, the vendor that we used lawyered up and talked to the sub-vendor that where the metal came from. It looked like it was just a no-go. long story short is that we just got word that those metal standards are going to be in the Port of Tacoma September 11th. That means they got to clear. That means they have to clear customs. They need to get clear customs, get over here, and have them installed. We think they're anywhere from 10 to 15 days of install to be installed. They're coming during our PIR day. In the 2 days, we've rented foldable chairs with big rubber feet on it, so we're all not sliding down to the bottom of that place. It's caused a lot of concern. We've lost travel at PIR because of it. They went to SKC because they have speakers and they don't want to put their violinists in the gym for acoustics purposes. So Julie and Miranda have decided to put tribal ed at SKC. There are consequences, and it's frustrating, but
Do we get any kind of financial relief for any of this?
not yet. Just because that was the legal pieces back and
Yeah.
forth, and they're calling it an act of God. I call it act of politism. And anyway, potentially they are coming. We just don't have completely understood when they're going to be. That's that. I'll keep you posted as that rolls out as well. The Polson Middle School roof is complete. The punch list was gathered. They were working on that. There's going to be a final walkthrough to make sure the punch list is done, and then there's some retained fees that we need to hold on to. But that project is near completion. So we really should have a leak-proof middle school, opposed to what it was like the last couple of years. The Cherry Valley's where they need to be. They'll go back to the middle school. The boilers are still really struggling. Their glycol count is low, which means they got a bunch of city water in it right now, and so they need to be upgraded. Hasn't been looked at for years, and so Dan had them inspected, and they're not in very good shape. So that's a piece that he's got to work on right away. Cherry Valley is still doing their thing, so it has a boiler that we're holding together, but it's ready to roll. And then, of course, the Leonard. Two things in Leonard. One is that we had a complete leak in the girls' bathroom and all the stalls. The weight of those bathroom or the toilets were pulling down. They weren't secure well on the wall, and they were pulling down and opened the joints of them, and so that it was leaking behind the wall. Dan spent the last month of tearing all that out, all the moisture problems, repositioning and strengthening the studs, and then he's going back on retile, and we hope to have those back on by the end of this week, ready for school. Leonard and Jim, we had a special board meeting, but it was decided that it was best if we get some information from Swank and Aegis on what the numbers are going to look like before we can move forward. The Aegis pulled together a construction fix. I shared that document at board agenda last week. The look of that building is going to be interesting at best. Asked for some other ideas. It looks like I'll let Tim and Chanel tell you what their impressions look, what it looks like. But it's going to be a lot of metal hanging in that thing. What you need to know is that information, the fix from Aegis went to Swank, and now they are putting numbers on what that cost looks like, how much metal is going to need to be put in there in the welding, and how it's going to be fabricated, and the cost to put that together. And so that's the number we need to send back to Travelers. Consequently, the engineers are still refuting one another on what those numbers look like. Travelers engineer is on site tomorrow morning. There's a lift already parked over there that they rented, and he wants to look at it for the third time. He wants to go back and look at it again. So this is number 3, and he spent 3 hours here the first time we wrote a report. Now it's back to 2 hefty reports later. So that's where we're at with Swanky and us numbers, and Travelers Insurance engineers on site tomorrow, and we'll do probably a day or at least a day and a half of inspection. That's our facilities to this point. Do you guys want to share what you don't have to put you on the spot.
No, you're fine.
Yeah.
And the look of the building's a little different.
It definitely will change the look of it. I was trying to be nice, but it reminded me of a gingerbread house. When the little kid puts all those little candies and all this little stuff on it.
With a Tim Burton more effect. That's sort of my take on it. But
Kind of scary.
I was kind of. Lego's gone bad.
As we get through that though, trustees, I do want to get together shortly because it is, at some point, the insurance company is going to pick into this thing, and so we could have a gym that's going to look a little different, but we could be back in it quicker because of that. So the cosmetic effect or the appearance of it's going to be a little different, but maybe we can get back in quicker, or versus that maybe we don't want that to look like that, and we decide to do something different. Essentially what it is, it's metal bars on the inside of it, all the way around with some big head frames, big steel metal frames, and then bolts going through to the exterior and metal plates fastened to the outside to keep it all sandwiched together, if you will. It's just more of it's a metal plate and a bar sandwiching that together. I did ask for a second opinion. Maybe we can pull all of that filler brick that you see, leave the columns and put metal plates, put metal in the middle of it, so it's cosmetically it might look a little bit better than the metal chicken pox thing that's proposed. So we'll have a couple of options for us coming up. So.
Madam Chair, without actually looking, seeing this, I can just imagine, but I remember originally when we were talking about that possibility, there was concern about those interior struts or what have you actually impeding the usage of some of the headroom, et cetera. Is that a reality with some of the fixes they've talked about? Does it go into some of the interior headroom?
Okay. Yeah, it was pretty, it's pretty metally, yeah.
Plus, there's some cross 45 angles that could be impeding in some of the doorways, and so we'd have to reposition those, or maybe change the doorways up.
Does that even pose possible? That sounds hazardous even for people using.
The building inspector here in town will have to approve any egress for fire, so we'd have to pass that as well. The other part is that the foundations of those 5 columns can collectively, north and south walls, those 5 on each, those big columns come down, the footprint, their foundation that they sit on, need to be expanded another 16 inches all the way around, so we have to get to the footing, and that means that we'll have to open up this north wall, open the locker room up to get in and pour more footings in for a fix.
Okay.
There's a
lot. Okay, thank you.
But thanks for being flexible and willing. So as soon as that comes, we will have to meet.
Sure.
But we felt like we just didn't want to waste your time, and until we have the numbers and know what Travelers is doing, then we will have a big decision. So thank you.
Is that fair for all of you?
Absolutely.
We get those numbers.
Yeah.
I reached out to Paul Bishop, our owner rep, on that, and he said it would be anywhere from, I hate saying dates because they don't ever come to fruition, but it's for 10 to 12 days is what I'm getting.
That's funny because
they keep saying that always. 2 weeks comes and you're like, where's that? And there's like nothing. So it's super frustrating.
Do we have they given us any better idea as far as the estimate of what those costs might?
I think it's
Swank did not want to put numbers on it in a regionalized guess until he saw what the drawings were to fix it.
Okay. Thank you.
And those drawings are going to be very important because that's what city code official will use to approve us to back in there. That's what he wants. He wants an engineer stamp saying it is safe to get back into.
Got it. Okay.
That's all I have for.
And I guess, actually, I'm still a little confused. So our engineer and their engineer, have they come to an agreement on what is required? They have not.
No. In fact, I reached out to Travelers last week, Thursday or Friday, and quite simply said, help me understand why he's back the third time. Why not the first time? I really like that intimate detail, and they believe that those numbers don't make a lot of sense, and they want to examine the model. Now remember, our engineer Austin took the numbers and modeled it. Right, put it in a model, and now they're doing the same thing with their own. That's why they're back, is that they're coming back to
trying to replicate
numbers.
These numbers or something.
And those numbers are not, they don't agree with the numbers yet.
So I don't see how we would know a cost until we have an agreement on what the engineers can agree on. And if they don't ever agree, then what's the next step? Is there a mediator of engineers who, I mean, I understand how this goes.
Yeah, that's the question I have. I do have an attorney that specializes in insurance claims.
Okay.
And we will, at that point, I haven't put anything out there to an attorney yet. But we have one that I know that does good work in that area. This is not a school law. This isn't taxes. This is insurance. And I want to know what that next step would be. Carl and I had talked about that, and we agreed, Tim, that potentially, is there a mediator of sorts, like your numbers and these numbers don't match, what's the middle ground? What does that look like? But I want to know what that next step is as well.
And didn't we discuss at the last meeting, the longer this goes, the worse it is for travelers, because they continue to rack up costs as we continue to bill them for everything that us being out of the gym costs them.
Correct.
Because, as we continue to bill them for the rental of modulars, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, that is a consequence of this insurance claim.
It is.
So
Yes.
they're under increasing pressure to settle this claim.
And I kind of thought about that, but if you look at it from a cost basis, right? So if Travelers is incurring costs of $10,000 here, $5,000 there, yeah, that hurts. But if the settlement is $1 million less, then it pays for them to drag this out a little bit. See what I mean? There's two sides to that story. And they are a zero-sum game. It's what the bottom line is at the end. So while they may want to get it settled, they may be dragging a little bit. So
yeah. There's probably some algorithm where it's like, okay, this is the number for us, and so as long as we keep it below this, or what have you.
And that same theory applies to our concept and our approach as well, is that we could have accepted that $600,000 for a new locker room on it, but we would not have a gym that would be. So our investment in an engineer that was going to give us some numbers about what the safety of that building looked like could also be advantage as it is for the other side as well.
One other quick question. Are we also looking at numbers, or are they also in the back of their head thinking about, like, if we don't put all this steel around it and fix it, if we just rebuild?
So,
or is that on the back?
Yes.
I mean, do we have anything that is supporting that?
That's a really good question, Shannon, and that was one of the talking points that I had for our special board meeting, is that for us to get compensated, for Travelers to invest in that building, it has to be rebuilt the way it is. It's not like hitting a deer with your car, and I'm going to give Steve a $15,000 check to go get his car fixed, and he decides to buy a new pickup with it. Right? That's not how it works. And so whatever it's like costs, and so whatever money is going to go into that building is going to go back into fix that building, not to restart a new one.
Rex, can I comment on that?
And that's because part of our policy has to do with code upgrades to get that building up to code so it meets seismic, that type of thing. And in order to access those funds that kick in that part of the policy, the fixes actually have to be made. So if you tear the building down and don't incur those costs, and that's just part of new construction, you lose that part of the policy because they weren't actually made.
Oh, so we can't just call it a total loss and then use that money to rebuild?
No.
You save one wall.
That's I've seen that before. Like, leave the chimney.
Exactly.
We're rebuilding.
Rebuild right the floor.
I've seen that before. Thanks, Rob. Any other questions?
Okay, any other questions, comments? Okay, as soon as we know something, we'll begin. Okay, moving along, number 6. Education committee. You're up, Quinn. Sorry. He's like, woo!
So my name is Chauncey Means, also an IEC in an education committee. Last week on the 13th, we had a backpack giveaway for all JLM and eligible students. Superintendent Welts Trustee McDonald over there to help us and did a lot of cool volunteering. And we needed it. There was over 80 backpacks given out with. We had these kits, and they kind of depended on which grade, from lower elementary to upper to high school. So we give away 80, and I still have a few boxes left of kits, and I'm getting calls right now. People are still looking for supplies. So that was great. You guys, appreciate your help. So on the 30th of August, we want to have the back to school barbecue for JOM and Title VI students. We're looking to have it at Cherry Valley. Smoke kind of help or determines everything, so we're gonna have to work around that. But the board's invited, public's invited, so we want to just put it out there. We also need to do a needs assessment at that time, and we'd like to have people fill out. And then we have a few backpacks left that we can give out to anybody who needs it. So.
What time is that?
5:30 to 7:30. And then we'll have a catering.
So would those 80 backpacks, did those go to families?
Families. So we had a list of JOM eligible students. They came in, we made sure they're on the list because the minors are only for those type of students. And then, so that's working out. Went very well.
There were also some kids that showed up that weren't eligible, and they referred them to other resources as well. It was pretty cool.
But yeah, if you guys know of any other resources for those kind of things, it'd be great to let us know too. So you tell people that.
Thanks for doing that. For me, it was the you're not really in school mode until you see kids come up and they've got their pack, right? Their backpack. There's crayons and glue, and then they're ripping through it. It's like, all right, we're in school mode now. It was a switch from summer to school starting. There's a lot of excited kids. They were excited to be there. Thanks for doing that, Chauncey.
Is there any questions? Board committee updates. Facilities committee, Mr. Anderson?
We haven't met yet, but 2 weeks from tomorrow will be our first meeting of the year. September 4th, 1 o'clock here.
Thank you. Policy.
I'll send out an email.
Policy?
We didn't meet, but we got a policy coming up.
Okay.
We did.
We'll get right on that. Okay, budget committee, we didn't meet, but we're gonna.
I'm pretty sure we're gonna cover that later.
Okay. Negotiations, both of them we have tentative agreements. They're taking it back to their members, and then hopefully in September, the contracts will be in here, or the agreements, right? So we're hoping we'll have it all ratified and ready for us by then. So, do you have any questions on that? Okay. Let's say caucus, we did anything, transportation?
That's the report. I'm sure we'll have something.
Okay, superintendent evaluation, anything, I don't think, calendar committee, sorry. Sorry. Okay, moving along, budget report.
This is the short one.
This is the short one.
Oh, okay.
There's a packet next to you with the little docket that has all the, not all of them, but a scaled down version of the budget packet for tonight. The top page has the summary of all the budgeted funds and the top dollar amount that we're looking to adopt tonight. I'm not sure how you want to go through this. Do you want to look at the comparisons for the mills versus last year, the amounts? I guess we can start with the taxable valuation. What do you want to go through?
Yeah, let me go with this.
Do you want to do it all in the later on?
Oh,
I do.
Yeah, that's actually what we were going to do.
I want to,
Okay.
let's wait, really what the plan was is when we get to the adoption process, then we'll go through it.
Okay, perfect. So we're going to just move along.
So the,
No, you're fine.
so over there's not a lot to report in this action item, which this is,
Okay, we're just gonna move it to item 16 and go.
right.
Okay, consent agenda. Number 9. Is there anything that needs to be talked about, removed, any questions? Anybody? Okay.
I move that we pass the consent agenda as presented.
Second. Okay. Any follow-up questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right. Recommendation to approve the 2018-19 high school student handbook. Mr. Welts, and then we're going to go to Mr. Next.
Okay, first of all, we're going to change how we present the handbooks for leadership, and I discussed the agenda. It's a little late to get these. We usually pass them. Middle schools are usually a little sooner, but then we work in the summer and then get them to you in August. And really, that doesn't give you a lot of time to look at them. So what we want to do is have, before administrators leave before the summer, have them work them over in June, have a first read in July. If you like them, we'll approve. If there's any recommendations for a change, then we can hear them in August. August pushes us late right now is to get them ready for students. Folsom Middle School sends theirs out for print. The rest of us print them on the local copier, plus or minus on both of those. But August is pretty late, so we're going to change how you see these from here on out. And I addressed that with the admin last week, and they're all in favor of it. It just makes sense. It's not fair to you to see this in August and have it ready for students in 2 weeks. Mr. Sampson, any for your?
Did you guys get the sheet I sent? I didn't have a ton of changes. I don't know if you want me to go through them or.
No, I think if they have any questions, they can ask.
Not a lot of changes. Added a work detail to in-school suspension. Maybe be a little proactive, getting not wanting kids in there. So with pick up trash or clean lockers or something. So.
Remember, this handbook was vetted through legal last year. It was overhauled last year. We did a lot of work on this one. And so the change right now is minor as they work through it. We're always will be changing these, but we had, and then this was a template for Mr. Finkbeiner and Mr. Yarbrough in their rehaul of their handbook this year. So it has been vetted.
Any questions? Any comments? No? Okay. If there's no questions or comments, I would entertain a motion.
Move to approve the handbook.
Second? Do you have any, do you guys do?
Okay.
Okay. I have a first motion and a second. Any follow-up questions, comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And then does everybody know who Mr. Hamilton is? Did you guys make him something? Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I figured you better. Yeah. Okay. All right, moving on to, I believe, the middle school. Okay. Middle school handbook.
Okay,
Mr.
so, Madam Chair, as Mr. Welts alluded to, what we did was we took the high school handbook. We had already had our handbook printed in Alton, so we couldn't get it done quick enough for this last year. We took the high school handbook, we went through that handbook because it was already legally vetted. And we wanted to really marry it to the high school so that there's not a massive transition between what they're doing in middle school to high school, but we understand that middle schoolers are different. I took it for about 4 weeks and went through all of it, tried to clean it up the best I could, but my experience at the middle school at that time was fairly limited. So then I handed it over to Mr. Yarbrough and Miss Katie Kwong, let them go through that. Then we took it to our building level team and had them break it down as well, which really got it down to just a few things that we had to have high discussions about, i.e. cell phones and, you know, dress code and little things like that. So you can look at those and see how we handled those things. Getting the staff to agree on those things was challenging, I think, a little bit, but we got there. But you will find it if you look through it, and if you went through the high school handbook last year, it's very, very similar in nature. Language is very similar, so it should be pretty clear. Jesse, do you have anything to add to that?
Any questions, comments, corrections? Public have any questions?
I didn't get to all of it, but just a question on disciplinary measures versus high school, middle school. Consequences, not the same
No.
exactly.
No. That's one of our mantras is we are not teaching high school kids. We're teaching middle school kids. And this year is really going to be about a middle school model. There is language now in the handbook that helps us administrate situations in a more differentiating manner, taking into account all things, not just you're out or you're doing this or that. And so that's helpful, and that came out of the high school handbook as well, to be fair. But we needed more of that. We needed to be able to look at each child individually with the circumstances, see what's the most effective way to help change the behavior of the issue. So I feel like, and you know me, I'm pretty picky about that stuff. I think it's well written.
Okay. Do you go through this page by page like during the first couple days of school, or how do you do
It
that?
took me about a month myself.
For the kids, I think.
Oh, what? That's it again.
How the kids know.
How do you
Go ahead.
The majority of that stuff's not for the kids.
Yes.
Right.
There's
And so
about
I
5
was just
pages
wondering how you-
that are for students, really. I mean, the rest is like legalese on how you check your kid in and out of school,
Right.
how we're gonna do all this stuff. But the highlights are taught in a teach two throughout the middle school, the first couple of days of school. We don't sit down and say, this is what you're not gonna do. That's really not a warm, welcoming environment the way we want to start school. But we do start with some of the big things and what we expect to do, not what not to do, and then we go through those procedures as the week goes. But really, it's, you know, most kids know what they're supposed to do and what they're not supposed to do. This is for sometimes we have to take the next step.
And just letting them know, like, maybe their consequences when they choose to make those choices.
Correct. But we don't need to drill down to the umpteenth level, just, you know, at that initial phase.
Right.
Is that fair? Anybody else have questions? Okay, I'd entertain a motion. If we're ready.
I move we approve the 2018-19 Folsom Middle School handbook.
Any other color? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, moving along. Approve the 2018-19 Linderman Student Handbook. Mrs. Wilson?
Again, I think you have the memo of my changes.
Yep.
We added our behavior matrix. One thing we did add is a paragraph about attendance, just because we have been really trying to focus on attendance and we want parents and students to know the importance of that. Added a few programs and then some grammatical changes throughout. 'Cause it's just too high.
Okay. Any questions or comments about the Linderman Handbook? Okay. Any public? No? Okay, I'd entertain a motion. When you're ready.
I move that we accept the ledger bin handbook as submitted.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Okay. Recommendation to approve the 2018-19 Cherry Valley handbook. Ms. Carroll.
Not a lot of changes to our handbook this year. I made a lot of changes last year. This year it was just updating dates to make sure that it aligned with our calendar this year, and then updating changes to our meal policy, the amounts of the meals.
Okay. Any questions or comments on Cherry Valley's handbook? Okay, entertain a motion for Cherry Valley's handbook.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Okay, number 14, recommendation to approve transportation purchase disposal. Mr. Anderson?
I'd like to trade in bus 13, our special needs bus, and freight liner special needs bus. It's just old and it's not a very good bus in the first place, and we run our special needs bus really hard. It's the one that gets all day long. So, another thing, I'd like to trade in bus 9 for that used activity bus. Add it to the fleet because it's a pre-emission bus. I talked to the people who owned it, Fort Benton had it, and they said, don't worry about it, we'll get you there and back. So it's a nice, that's what they said, don't worry about it.
Therefore,
Can't give a recommendation.
They said, so it has air conditioning, activity seats, overhead, storage, and luggage bays and stuff. And we had it checked out by a third-party inland truck, and they said it would be a very nice bus to add to our fleet. And it doesn't have emissions.
So they're selling it? Fort Benton is?
Fort Benton traded it in to Hartley's, our white bus in 2017. We had an issue up there in Libby, and I said, I want a bus down here now, and they traded in a new bus for this used bus, and they just ran it over there to us, and we've had it in our possession since like...
That's that red and white one?
Yeah.
It's a used bus.
Right.
They traded in for branding.
So, yes, that's, it's a very nice bus. I mean, we've driven it 2,000-3,000 miles, and everybody loves it. It hasn't given us any issues, and we'll take it down and rebuild it like new, and it doesn't have emissions. So that's what's kicking us. So, and then you'll notice there's a van disposal. We have this van 23 that's just, it should have been gone a long time ago, but we milked it for everything we could. So it's sitting in the corner. So
when it says, excuse me, when it says dispose, that doesn't mean we're going to take it to the crusher. You know, we have laws on how we dispose of vehicles, so that's going to be a surplus. It will be very inexpensive, and then once it doesn't sell out of surplus, then we can get rid of it. But we've had to drag that back home several times. That's fair.
Are you replacing it, or you're just?
No, I just getting rid of it.
Okay. Okay. Any questions or comments from Mr. Anderson? Nope. Okay. Entertain a motion.
I move we approve Mr. Anderson's purchase and disposal plan.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. You're up again. Recommendation to modify the bus route.
We had parents call and wanted us to run a bus down to Mission Bay, down to the community center. And do a loop through there, pick up some students. They estimate that there's going to be about 8 students down there. That's the gas. But we have Route 8 is coming in. It doesn't have a whole lot of students. It drives right by and usually picks them up there. So we'll just have them swing down there, and it adds 3.2 miles to the route. About 15 total over the day, so I think we can do it.
Okay.
I will say that is a city street. I also drive that. That's where I'm at. And the amount of kids that walk on that street back into the subdivision is dangerous.
There's no sidewalk.
There's no sidewalk there. And so they're walking, especially when they're instructor, you see kids out off that bus and running back down that street. I've said that for a long time. It would be helpful to have a. So we've been in contact with Dennis Duke, and they're in favor of that. One thing, we want to make sure that the Mission Bay was okay. So let's run a big bus down there. Consequently, we do run a special needs bus into that community every day, and have been for years. So it's not uncommon for that bus, a bus to go in there.
Yeah.
So it is safe, or safer for kids to have be dropped off there by the community center versus out on the highway.
Can you turn a bus around?
Yes, it is. It has, we've got it so that you go turn from the community center, you can't take it like a block, so you just swing in and you do, there's no backing. And the door, we have them just right there by the parking area, just open up the door over there. So.
Yeah, just you almost goes around the block. There shouldn't be any reverse. As long as it goes to the back and somebody's dragging it. Right.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
All right. Ready?
Okay, I'd entertain a motion.
I got it.
Move that we get Mission Bay that bus route.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, recommendation to adopt the 2018-2019 budgets. Thank you. This is clarity.
Yeah, we did that.
Now you're up.
Six, yeah.
Okay, so to start again, the summary page is on the top. It will show the totals for each fund that we are required to adopt for the budgeted funds. And then I did not list the non-budgeted funds, but there's a list of them on the bottom there. This is an overall increase of approximately $548,806. The next sheet shows the fund comparisons from last year to this year and the mill change. So I was going to speak briefly on each fund. The general fund.
Can I stop you real quick?
Sure.
So a phenomenon this year is that our property value, taxable property value went up, which lately it's gone down, right? The value of your property has gone down. So when that happens, is that we have to ask for more mills to reach our budget, right? This year, the property value increased, which you'll notice that the highlight is that we are asking our community for less mills. Per household, it went down, which is a positive, even addressing the needs of what our budget looks like. Our budget went up over $500,000, but the amount that we're asking the public, the mills, has decreased because of the value. Very helpful. And so we're very mindful of not asking for more, not increasing bus depreciation in that sense, not asking for more mills to make it even as it was last year. I'm okay with a decline, especially if we have to go out and ask for more help later. You also notice that there's going to be what we've talked a lot about, House bills, or Senate Bill House Bill 307, which that was the building reserve piece. That was then the first time the building reserve is allowed to have a permissive levy. So that money is in there as well, along with our levy funds that 245 out of the elementary district and 185, 187 out of the high school district for building reserves. So the number of mills that we're asking for is less. Our budget went up just a little. But that makes sense in the world that we live in, is that everything's increasing. Salaries, electricity, water. Expenditure to run a business is more expensive, and so obviously we're going to ask for a little bit more. But we felt like it's very compatible with not asking for more than what we asked for last year for the public. And then Pam was going to walk through each one of these. The thing that we also asked, or we put in here, is that you can see with the 2017-18 what we asked for that year, and that's this color-coded sheet here. And then you can see what we asked for in the 18-19. what we adopted last year and what we're asking for this year. One difference that you'll notice is in the tuition fund, you're going to see that that went up. Remember in legislation, they like local control. And they say, let's let the taxpayers pay for it because the state's no longer willing to do it as much. They also gave us what's called a flexibility account. Flexibility, not the flexibility account, but the ability to have flexibility within your accounts to do some things we haven't done in the past. Legislation, the triennium or the biennium 2 years ago gave us the opportunity to use tuition funds for salary, which takes some of the burden off of the general fund, which is a voted levy. Remember that? So remember that, I know that Caroline and Chanel and I sat in budget meetings, they said, we're giving you the authority to use your tuition fund differently than you have in the past. What that means in the special ed, we have pairs that are working individually with students. We can use that in salaries where it normally came out of general. So you can see how that would allow us some flexibility to take some of the pressure off of the general fund. And so we're utilizing those strategies to try to do what we can to help alleviate the general fund. Because if we increase the general fund, we're going to have to ask the taxpayers for a vote on that one.
Which is what I was going to say. The general funds are at the highest amounts that we can do without going to a vote. So although we got the 1.7 increase on the general funds, we can't go any more over that. And although we have our salaries are all increasing 2 to 3%, we can't increase our general funds that much without going to a vote to ask them for more. So that's where these strategies come in shifting some of those dollars in these permissive ways for tuition, building reserve, and that's the legislative sessions enabling us to use those dollars more locally, but still trying to be cognizant of the taxpayers. So there's a sheet that shows you from last year to this year. And so the general fund is down in elementary, 5.93 mils. The transportation and the retirement are both pretty static quo. I visited with Rex and we are pretty good on our reserves there. We can max them out as much as we can and still save the taxpayer and not bump it up too much. We have enough in reserves and have planned accordingly. We're going to be doing that again, looking at retirements and our routes and whatnot, but we've been doing pretty good in both those county ones, so we didn't bump those very much, so you'll see very little there, little change. Cost depreciation, I can do up to 20% legally. We have inched that up a little, and the max we did at this year was 10% of us, which is half of what we can do, but it enables Mike to budget for 3 new buses this year, right? Is that what we planned?
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah.
At least 2.
Yeah, right around the $200,000 mark, and so we kind of hit that, looking at 10%, and I did that on each bus. Now we could fluctuate that per route as needed, or whatever, we could do up to 20%.
Remember when most of you started on the board, it wasn't uncommon for our kids to call and say, hey, we broke down on a bus somewhere. Okay. Remember that was 5-6 years ago. In fact, I've never had so many bus breakdowns. And one of the things, the emphasis for us is to get better buses on the road. And so that's something that Mike has done a good job working with Pamela. We increased bus depreciation so that we have the opportunity to increase our fleet years, right? We get newer buses on the road, which makes a lot of sense. Not only just the newer buses, but the right buses, because there have been a lot of emission problems with some of the buses, and there's some class action lawsuits out there right now on people buying their own buses. And so we found out what those look like. So Mike's done a nice job of not having so many buses filed. Remember we had to follow a bus just in case it broke down? Yeah. So we're increasing our fleet, the reliability of it. So that's the reason why you'll see bus depreciation go up a little bit. Make sure we have good buses.
Just remind me, I always forget this, to go back to Rex's point about some of those flexibility options that we have. There was one of those funds, I can't remember if it was transportation or bus depreciation, that we were allowed some flexibility to use for emergency safety or something.
Yeah.
Which one of those funds are we allowed to use for that?
We are able to do that in all the funds that we actually do in multi-district. We kind of already do that safety, or we don't label it safety.
Yeah.
But we already do that for the multi-district.
But wasn't there one specifically that you said you could tap into?
Transportation is one. Yeah.
Which, okay, but, and I was wondering, is there any additional that we should bump that up just in case we, outside of what we're already doing for facilities planning or whatever, because safety is such a concern for us, just so that maybe we have a little extra cushion if we want to take on a safety project or something?
I actually have thought a lot about that. If you look at, as we get down into building reserve and the permissive levy, I think that those funds should be able to take care of some of those.
We've already accounted for that?
If there's ever a time that we need more, what I really want to do is not try not to increase the mills to the taxpayers. And if there's safety needs, i.e. fobs and keys, a gel, a bead spray, whatever it might be, we can look at that as our third tier of intervention or funding. But I want to see where we're at with our building reserve and permissive levies for the district right now. Remember, the middle school, or the elementary district, which is the middle school, that's $245. That roof should be paid for here in this year. And so we'll have that $245 remaining for the next 3 years. So that's money that we can use for safety, perhaps, and not take it out of transportation. Transportation, the reason why they do that is because usually transportation is pretty flush. That's what everybody's thinking.
Exactly.
That's why the budget committee from OPI says take it from transportation, because it has more money. I don't think we need to go there yet, because I'm thinking that our building reserves are going to be able to take care of that.
And
but it is an option.
The only reason I bring it up is just as it seems like, especially in the last couple of years, not that this would take care of a problem like Linderman, it doesn't even fall into the right category, but it seems like we're constantly being hit with these problems out of the blue, and so to remember to think about all possible options as far as flexibility in the budget, and to where we have those options, where we can plan for them to do so, if we can, and still be responsible to the taxpayer. That's all I'm
yeah, we're being real mindful of where to raise it and where to keep it.
Right.
And I'm comfortable with where we're at with this scenario.
Thank you.
Moving on, the tuition last year was the first year that we tried the special ed tuition amount, and when I visited with Mr. Berg, he started naming me people, and I was like, okay, hold up, I have enough. Because obviously we have quite a few pairs that we can utilize that on. So Mr. Wilkes and I visited about that and bumped both those elementary and high school up to help pay for those special ed folks. Retirement, like I said, we just bumped it the 6308. I hit a couple areas on our personnel and bumped it up just very little. Adult ed held status quo on both elementary and high school. Because that is one of the funds that we can permissively put into the building reserve, I have not changed that the last few years. We've been utilizing adult ed more, which is fun to see, a little more work from Mr. Sampson, but we are able to get more classes and maybe even more equipment into the schools, but yet we're also able to not levy anymore, but then use it for building reserve amounts. Technology, the only thing we have remaining, and I had to laugh at the $599. And then also the remaining in the high school is the $36.95. Pretty much that's gone away. That used to be our timber dollars. It was our school grant dollars, school block grant dollars,
which all has been taken away. And so in order to reallocate those remaining amounts, I have to have your approval to spend them. Flexibility account, that fund was set up years ago for schools to be able to flex some of those dollars in there from other funds. And we had very minimal amount. In fact, I was thinking about closing them this year, and OPI even addressed that with me. And then this last year, we had a donation statewide, and all districts received these little amounts. So we did get $89.37 from the state donation. So it's a good thing I left it open. Building reserve, you will see the 3 different amounts in each fund. The voted levy is, we are on year 3 of 5. The permissive amount, okay, so that is $245,000 in the elementary and $182,000 in the high school. Then tagged onto that, we have the permissive amounts, and those are the maximum amounts that we are allowed to do per the 307. $134,000 in the elementary and $63,600 in the high school. And then that bottom amount is the fund balance from previous years that instead of pulling it in the reserves where we are adopting into the amount so that we can have authority to spend those as we are finding more and more projects. So all those totals, we have $666,245 in elementary and elementary again, and my high school. What is it? $334,000 in the high school. So that's a brief look of each fund, and the overall mill change, we're down 2.7 in the elementary that we're asking on this budget, and 2.98 on the high school. So overall, 5.68 mills lower than last year.
With an increase of $500,000 to the overall levy.
Right.
Because of the value.
We did include more detailed packets on each fund that's behind the summary in the very back, stapled together, elementary and high school. I know sometimes in the past I've gone through that more. I don't know if you want that more tonight or if you have any questions right now.
One part on the building reserve, just for you remember that, remember the 307? Those funds, that was a big conversation topic about a year and a half ago, and how that was generated to the public and communicated. When that set into legislation, what they finalized was that that money can only be spent on the report that was generated statewide on the deficiencies of every district. Remember that big report is a large document. And they brought people through the entire state, every district had then outlined, you can download it up to the OPI site, but that money is specifically designated for projects that was earmarked by that firm that came through the district. And it's things like, it's foundations, it's cracking walls, it's windows, it's things that they deem as most important. That wasn't what that 307 started out as, but as it transpired through, for accountability purposes, that's what they really wanted that money to be spent on. So if we have a wall that needs to be fixed, that probably can't be used during that time, that 307 money.
Nothing like local control, huh?
Right. You asked, yeah.
I got a question. So these numbers are, I'm hoping, assuming just the dates wrong for the high school. It says 2016, 17, 2017,
Oh,
18.
yes. You're
So
right.
it'd be 18, 19,
It's supposed to be 17, 18, 18, 19 on my schedule.
but the numbers are good then.
Yes. Hopefully, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I didn't notice that, thanks.
Okay. Any
So-
questions?
oh,
Are you done?
Yep.
Sorry, I thought you were, it was kind of quiet, so I thought I would. Okay, any questions?
What's the status of impact aid? I know last year there was a lot of questions about when it was coming, if it was coming,
That-
and all that kind of stuff.
Good question too. Impact aid is always going to have that question, when it comes, how much it comes, and what's the allocation. Traditionally, we were about, in the years past, we're $500,000-$600,000. They usually allocate about 80% of that, so we'll receive $300,000-$400,000 of that. Sometimes we got a check a while ago for one that was 3 years old, 2.5 years old. So you just really don't have a good number on that, when it's going to show up. I'll say that our office did a much more comprehensive study of who lives or works on, which indicates our impact aid, and we were up more students, especially in the elementary district, and so we'll receive a little bit more. It is a fund that people in districts get in trouble when they start using that as their salary basis.
Right.
Because there's no consistency in it. And so you don't know if you're going to get 500,000 or 200,000, and if it's going to come in later or early. So I don't like using it for our salary. It's great to offset some other additional costs. But to answer that question, we don't know.
Yeah,
we
I
don't
was
know when it's coming or
trying to get a
it's
sense of
going.
what the tea leaves were looking like this
But
year
we do
compared to some of the
We will have a
others.
little bit more, just I think through the due diligence of this office, specifically Pamela and Debbie, working real hard with Tribal to find out who works on and lives on, which is the indicators of impact aid. We're also consequently going to go down to a conference for impact aid. It's one that's going to help us understand how to get that and more of it. We are lower than most districts on the reservation. I know that St. Lucius and Ronan, we talked, they have much more impact aid dollars than we do, much more.
Do we have an idea if how we are looking for attendance or population this year?
I love this story. So I've looked at it for the last 15, 20 years. This district is going to be 1,600. Somewhere in that, it is, remember we went through Quality Schools grant, remember, and they were projecting this big increase, and we're all going to get these. We're a 1,600 student district. It's going to be 1,650 or it's going to be 1,590, but we're going to be right in that range. I know that first kindergarten, first, fifth, and seventh, perhaps, are closed. I think that's right. Right. Anything Linderman? No. So at fifth grade also. So we are capping. We know that we're getting full, but we'll get that first seat in there, and then our first count date we'll have a better idea. But everybody asks how many kids we're going to have. 1,600 somewhere in there. People, we just get really worked up about it, but it's going to be in that low 60s. And I'll have, once we do ahead, I'll let them know it should be in that.
I think we were closing in on 500 in high school. I think we're a couple short.
And that's my first year in 2012. We were 520, 524. My last year there was about 480. And so to hear that, to back up into 500, that's good news.
Okay, questions, comments? Public questions or comments? Okay, I would entertain a motion to adopt the 2018-2019 budget. So moved.
Second.
Okay, first and second, all in favor? Opposed? Okay, passes. Recommendation to approve policy 5120, hiring process and criteria. Mr. Elliott.
Okay, we had an audit this spring that went over our processes for conducting background checks, and we did receive a finding, and so this is a result of that audit, why we're bringing this to you. So in your packet, I did include a copy of the audit, and I included a copy of our response to that audit. And then, in addition to my response was a draft of what we would propose to the board to fix our deficiency, and the form that we'll use to keep track of individuals who have a successful background check. And then the auditor's response to our basically recommendation to fix that deficiency. So what we're asking for you to do is to essentially approve the policy that we received from MTSBA, and we just took it verbatim because it complied with what they needed. We had, when they originally proposed these changes, we didn't accept all of those changes because we had that Doe lawsuit from years ago that had to do with hiring somebody without a background check many, basically before we started doing background checks. And so we weren't comfortable complying with the disposal part of the policy, because then we would have really no proof that we actually did the background check. And we decided that the proof was the rap sheet that we get from the FBI. And if we want to continue to do background checks, we need to comply with what their regulations are. So we will now institute those recommendations for once they're looked at. If they're acceptable, we keep a list of acceptable background checks and just keep those background checks that are not acceptable, so that we have them on file for if they would apply today, they don't get accepted as an employee, and then down the road, they, or let's just say within the 2 years that the background checks are good, we still have it to say, no, you still need to get these taken care of if you want to do it. So long story short, is we're asking you to basically replace the policy we have on hand with the policy that's in the packet.
Any questions, comments? Any questions from the public? Okay, entertain a motion.
So how do we get rid, so you can only keep for so long and then you have to, wasn't part of this is just making sure that we get rid of them?
Yeah, you had to have a shredding policy and a handling policies, how you're going to destroy them, that type of thing. And that's what this includes.
2 years.
Okay. 2 years.
Move we accept the policy as presented.
Second. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you. You're up again. Recommendation to approve the personnel report. Mr. Elliott.
Okay, we have a personnel report for both the high school district, and we have an amended report in your folder for the elementary district. We received a request for a leave of absence, and so their letter is also in your folder for you to review. It's a rather long personnel report. We have lots of coaching staff on it and substitutes, and you'll probably see quite a few subs these next few months as we get them trickling in. We usually give them till October to say they're going to sub before we remove them from the list. On the elementary report, I was informed that we need to remove one person in the coaching section because she isn't going to fulfill that role this year. The third person from the bottom in the coaching section is Ms. Hupka, and she is not going to do the middle school yearbook co-advisor. So if you could strike her name. And other than that, unless you have any questions, I would ask that you would approve the high school as submitted and the middle school as amended.
I got a question. There's one less head or assistant boys basketball coach for middle school?
Because we've got to hire for that one.
What's that?
We have a position, we have a posting out.
Oh, okay.
I would entertain a motion to refer the personal report for the high school. So, any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, personal report for the elementary school district.
I move that we pass the elementary school district amended personnel report.
Okay, any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Okay.
Can I just clarify,
Yes.
we're approving the amended one from your folder? Is that,
Yes,
okay.
that's what she said, right?
Okay.
Amended report, yeah, okay. Is that what you needed?
Yeah, I just
Okay.
want to make sure that you were thinking about that leave of absence request.
Yes. Okay,
Thank you.
I think we need to leave the leave of absence request in the green folder and it'll be right.
Yes.
Okay. Put that back in. Okay, last, recommendation to approve out of district report, Mr. Wells.
I would ask that you would approve the, regional high school, is that where you're at?
Yes.
I'd ask that you approve the high school out of district report for students as submitted. So.
Okay, any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Okay. We will need to look at the report for the elementary district. We're asking that we approve the report for the elementary district.
So as, nope, that's good. I'm asking for you to approve the elementary report, out of district report as submitted.
Okay. Any questions?
And there's, to be clear with that there's 3 that are not approved and 6 that are after the report.
Just out of curiosity, are the folks that are not approved, or is it because we don't have the room, or is it because of like attendance or?
Capacity.
Okay, so we just don't approve them. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I would entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the out-of-district elementary school report as submitted.
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Okay. Thank you. Anything else? Whew. Mr. Burke.
I'd just like to do a brief introduction. This is Kay Lincoln, our new school psychologist. She came tonight to endure the board meeting. That was great.
They like you already.
Welcome. Okay. All right. Hopefully we'll see you all Monday morning, but Friday afternoon for barbecue. All right. Okay.
That's right.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Good evening.